seems like you were either.
And mental health is something that we don't talk about enough. In the black community, well, we're massively overrepresented in the mental health institutions, even more so than in the prisons. And again, these are questions we have to ask. Well, why?
You know, but once you get a control and an understanding of who you are, no one can use you against you. No one can ever use your mental illness against you. You've already spoke about it, so what you got?
The biggest point in life to resolve mental health is like giving a fuck about a person.
Where did you get the courage? I got the courage for 2 words. I care.
It's Chill Will Radio, where connections will be made, advice will be given, jokes will be told, and things will get real. My name is Willis Cooks, and I'm your host. But understand this show is not meant to be used as a substitute for a relationship with a licensed mental health professional. Enjoy the show, y'all. Yo. What's the deal? What is going on? Let me get all this stuff right. The music, the background music, make sure that's playing and everything is nicely, man. I hope everyone's doing well on this Sunday morning. Man, it's cold. It ain't cold, but it's dark out there, man. It look like it's finna pour. And, you know, it don't rain in California. Southern California. Ain't that a song? Never rains in Southern California? I can't remember who sang that. Anyway. Shouts out to all those people who's listening and tuning in, all that good stuff, you know. Good looking to you, big homie. As always, man, shouts out to everyone that's listening and tuning in. I thoroughly appreciate you. This is episode number 54. We have 54 episodes in, man. And I just appreciate the fact that you take your time to listen to me, whether it's today, tomorrow, the day after tomorrow, next week, next month, next year, whenever it is. Good looking. It's thoroughly important to me that you actually listen to this, whether if it's 1 person, 2 people, 3 people, 4 people. I don't get so caught up in the stats of things. I don't get so caught up in the amount of people that actually listen to certain things, only because I understand for me it's even hard to do this, right? Every I don't know if this is the same for like some of the other shows, but for me, every single show, a few minutes before then or like an hour before, and I get a little nervous, right? I get a little nervous only because it's at this point it's nothing new. I've been doing this for like over a year now. Damn, I've been doing this for over a year. At this point it's nothing new, but at the same token, that anxiety is still there. And it's important to understand certain times in which that anxiety is kind of just always going to be there, right? Sometimes our anxiety is just going to be there, and the only thing that we can do about the anxiety is just deal with it, right? Sometimes that's just the only thing that we can do. Is just deal with the anxiety, right? Just deal with it, because when we try to avoid it, that's when the anxiety gets like way worse, like when we try to avoid it. But if we just kind of sit with it, work in it, you know, if the one thing that we're anxious about, if we just go towards doing that thing, just like the one thing where we don't have the confidence in, if we just go forward to just do it, the anxiety is going to begin to lessen, right? The confidence is going to, well, the lack of confidence is going to kind of die out because we're just in it. A lot of the times, right, we're anxious because of things that we're just thinking about, right? That hasn't even happened yet, right? I say it all the time. In groups here and everywhere else, depression is about focusing on the past. Anxiety is about focusing on the future. Being present is what's most important right now, right? When you're at peace, it's because you're present. But when we're anxious, it's like, I'm thinking about this, I'm thinking about that. And because I'm such a forward thinker, when I come here, I already have like the show planned out in my head, like from top to bottom, like every word I'm going to say and how I'm going to do this and blah, blah, blah. Like right now, I know exactly what I'm going to say 2-3 minutes from now, right? Just because my mind is going that way. But it's hard to stop. And I always have to tell people that when sometimes we just have to accept the fact that this is who we are. Sometimes I just have to accept the fact that I'm an anxious person. I just have to accept the fact that sometimes I deal with low self-esteem or lack of confidence. I just have to accept the fact that me, Willis, I have an issue with expressing my feelings. And that's hella ironic because I'm a therapist and I'm good at assisting other one with expressing their feelings. But when it comes to you helping me facilitate and express my own feelings, it's the hardest thing in the world, right? Sometimes we just have to accept it. And that's the thing. We fight with the acceptance of it. We're not even fighting with the anxiety. We're not even fighting with the low self-esteem. We're not even fighting with whatever it is. We're fighting with the acceptance of the fact that this is me. If you're just anxious, cool. If you have low self-esteem in certain areas, that's okay. But what's most important is that you do not allow that low self-esteem to control your life. What's most important is that you do not allow that lack of confidence, that anxiety, or that depression, or that whatever it is to control your life, right? When it comes to trauma, it's about you controlling the trauma, not the trauma controlling you. Because there are certain traumatic experiences that we probably will never get over. There are certain things in life that we will probably never get over. See, we focus on trying to get over it. We focus on trying to do whatever just to get over it. I need to feel as if I'm fixed, right? But maybe sometimes that crack or that dent in that armor is just going to stick there, right? There are certain things that just can't be fixed. There are certain bruises and certain scars on your body, on your mind, on your psyche, on your spirit and soul that are just going to remain there. And the thing is, that's okay. Right? Because it becomes thoroughly effective when you understand how to allow that scar that's on your spirit to be a story. It's thoroughly important if you allow that anxiety to become your story. If you allow your self-esteem or your lack of confidence to become your story. And if you're not doing that, you're letting that side win. You're letting all of that stuff win. And what you have to realize, in order for you to be able to win certain battles within your life, it has to be done one step at a time. One step at a time. Focused on one thing and try to conquer that thing. And that thing is the day in which you're in. That thing is that moment in which you're in. That thing is me conquering this show right now, episode 54, in which we are in. If I do not conquer this, then it is what it is. I'm going to do another show next week. It's going to be another topic. It's going to be another day. And that's what I believe is most important. The fact that it's going to be another day. Right? Because people forget about shit. Right? People forget that you got clowned on in certain schools. People forget about your embarrassments. People forget about certain things. And like, they may remember it if there was something to trigger that memory. But like, people aren't going to look at you and be like, oh, I can't fuck with you because of XYZ, or when I think of you, that's the first thing. And granted, there are some people within our lives that we have to where we look at them, we think of a specific moment, right? But in the grand scheme of things, when you're walking away from that person that's making you think about that specific moment, that situation don't matter anymore. We don't. We perseverate on the things that we think that person is thinking, right? We perseverate on the things that we think that person is thinking, right? There's a quote. I can't remember who studied this quote, but it's probably my favorite quote, right? The quote is, I am not who I think I am. I am not who you think I am. I am who I think you think I am, right? I am not who I think I am. I am not who you think I am. I am who I think you think I am, right? It's like we live in a perception of a world, right? I think that you are thinking this. I think that you are thinking this. First of all, my thoughts is wrong because I can't think about what you're thinking. So now it's all the way messed up. So now we're crossing an extra barrier, which is just going to cause us to be anxious even more. No. Right? So when it comes to many of the things that we go through in life, such as this, such as everything else in life, I believe it's just thoroughly important to just go. Deal with all of that shit on the other end. And it's tough because we have certain things that gets on our way. We may be busy, and if we're busy, it's easy for us to come up with all the excuses in the world, because whatever it is, it's not high on our priority list. It's not giving me no money. It's not, feeding my tummy. It's not giving me no money. It's not feeding my tummy. I'm retarded. But it's not doing those things that's most important. So it's easy for me to brush it off to the side. But then we're going to brush it off to the side until it becomes important. And then when it does become important, now we're like, fuck. I gotta deal with this shit. I should have dealt with it back then, and now this stuff is here, and now this has compounded into a bunch of other things in which I gotta do. I don't have the time for it. I don't have the money, and that's the thing. When life decides to smack you in the face, it never smacks you in the face when you're doing your best. It never smacks you in the face when like you have all of the money in your pocket where you just prepare like, yep, all right, cool. My car crashed, bet. I got 20 in my savings account. I got it. No, that car gonna break down when you ain't got nothing. It's gonna break down when you just hit zero. That car, your girl gonna break up with you when something else happens. It's just like negative after negative after negative after negative after negative. And I think I had a show on about this a few weeks ago as to why that negativity begins to create a snowball effect within our lives, because we feed it, we think about it, we focus on it. That becomes our thoughts, and our thoughts can manifest into something greater, right? But we don't want to go down that route. We don't want to do that at all. And the simple way to do things is just to get it done, because while you're in the middle of it, it's going to feel good, the fact that you actually tried to do it. Because what you have to do is just give your best, right? And understand your best is going to be different each day. Your best is never going to be the same. Your best is never going to be the same. Just do what you got to do at that moment and just work your ass off and just be okay and glad and appreciate the fact that you were able to give your best. Even if your best is a crappy job, right? Even if you are a trash basketball player and your best is to get 3 fouls instead of 4, like even if that's your best, give your best. And don't compare what your best is to the next person, because other people have other talents, other people have worked on certain things longer than you have, and other people, it just might be that person's day. There are certain people in which I play basketball with in which they're not really good, but that one day ain't the best thing on the court. It just might be that day. Like, it just might be that day. You know, and understand that it's okay. It might not be your day, but you're never going to be able to create your day. It's just all about you doing what you have to do for the sake of today. And if that means it's the best in what you can do, just give yourself the credit, right? But I have a friend, and I hope this friend is listening, because I tell her this all of the fucking time. I tell her this all of the time. She's doing a superb job as a single mother. She's doing a superb job, you know, with how hard she works, with all of those things. But she never gives her ass the credit. She always talking shit about herself. I'm too fat, and I'm doing this by myself, and I'm tired, and like, kill that. I tell her this, and I hope you're listening. I tell her this all the time. Give yourself some damn credit. Same with us in general. Give yourself some fucking credit for everything that you're doing, because it may not be perfect right now, but it's good enough for you. It may not be perfect right now, but it's good enough for you. Because what you gotta understand, people's lives are set up differently, right? Some people don't have the support to have a child, which is why they don't. Some people do have the support to have a child. Don't compare your eggs to that other person's eggs. Don't compare your life to that other person's life. It's thoroughly and drastically different. And it's never going to be the same. It never will. Right? And if we think it's going to be the same, or if we choose to focus on that one thing, it's not going to do nothing but hurt us in the end. Not going to do nothing but hurt us in the end. So it's important that we focus on all of those things that we are doing good at that moment, and just give yourself some fucking credit. Give yourself some credit, because you deserve it. Right? That was a very, very, very long-winded intro. A very, very long-winded intro. I don't know. That was just something that kind of just snuck out. I wanted to say something else in the beginning, but it didn't come out. But one of the things that I want to make sure I say in the beginning before I thoroughly start the show is that when we're working with people, when it comes to mental health, and this is something that happened to me yesterday at work. Was it yesterday? Yeah, yesterday at work. I can't say what happened, but this is just something that we all need to be mindful of. We never know what someone is going through. We never know what someone is actually doing to themselves. We never know how someone is. We never know how that individual or what that individual is hiding in their own personal closet. So it's important that we are mindful of these functioners, I guess, if that's the word, right? These functioners. We have to be mindful of these functioning drug addicts. We have to be mindful of these individuals who are functioning within their depression, who are functioning within their anxiety, functioning within their schizophrenia, if they're functioning within their personality disorder, if they're functioning within their suicidal thoughts, within their hallucination, within their delusion, if they are able to function within life. Two ends, right? Two sides of the spectrum. On one end is dope that you're able to function with whatever you're doing. It's dope that you're able to function. It's dope that you may be extremely depressed, but you got everything under control. It's dope that it ain't dope that you're doing meth, but if you're able to function within your meth addiction, the functionality of it is pretty dope. Right? The functionality of it is pretty dope, because there are some people who are doing meth who are just off the wall. There are some people who are doing weed who are able to function within the fact that they're able to smoke. But then there are also people who smoke weed and they start hallucinating. They become psychotic. Right? The fact that you're able to function within whatever you're doing is really, really dope. But also understand, you as the person, if you are functioning within your challenges, I guess, functioning within your challenges, if you are a functioner, right? We're gonna label you a functioner right now. If you are a functioner, I should do an episode on that later on. Yeah, if you are a functioner, understand that the things that you are doing on the side, in the closet, on the back end, will always come to light at some point, right? It may not come out in the rinse, but it may not come out in the wash, but it's going to come out in the rinse, right? It may not come out in the wash, but it's going to come out in the rinse. It's going to come out in some way. Your depression will just get too crazy. Your meth addiction will just get too crazy. Your drug addiction will just get too crazy. Your life will just get too crazy, right? Because when we're just functioning, what we're really doing is we're just hiding. When we're just functioning, what we're really doing is we're just hiding. I'm hiding because I don't want my friends to know about this. I don't want my job to know about this. I don't want my coworkers, my girlfriend, my boyfriend, my child, my son, my daughter, my whatever to know what I have going on. So I'm going to do a little bit here so I can get my fix, so I can shut up that voice. But I'm also going to continue to make sure I do everything the best that I can, such as work, such as maintain this relationship, such as maintain all of these things, so I can continue to be dope. Right? So, to everyone, be mindful of those people in your life who may be going day to day and functioning within whatever mess that they're functioning in. Be mindful of those people. Assist those people. Help that person. Help that person understand that even though they may be functioning now, they're going to get to a point to where they won't be able to function. Right? And you're going to do that to that individual, and what's 9.999 times out of 10 going to happen is that person's going to be like, I got it under control, right? That's what a lot of the addicts say. A lot of the functioning addicts say, I got it under control. It doesn't control me. That's why I'm able to, work and then do this and then work and then do it and then maintain my relationship and then do this. Like, I got it under control. You have it under control now. What's going to happen is you're going to get smacked in the face sometime in the future. I don't know when that will be, but when you get smacked in the face, it's going to be hard. Okay? So, moving on forward into the self-care piece. And I'm not going to give a self-care piece today, and this probably should have been something that I've done in the beginning, right? But I'm going to give you 4 specific things that I think is best in order to create your own form of self-care. And these are things this is kind of a timeline that I make sure that I follow along when I'm giving you all self-care pieces to put in your self-care regimen, right? These 4 things I believe is thoroughly important, right? And the reason why because I was gonna do something else completely different today, right? But the reason why I decided to do this is because I was having a conversation with a friend, and he was telling me, we were speaking about self-care, and he was telling me he's broke right now. I'm like, why are you broke? He's like, man, I just felt like I needed to reward myself. I felt like I needed to reward myself, so I went to the mall and I just bought me a bunch of shit. And now he ain't got the money for rent. So I had to tell him, like, yo, that's not self-care, dog. That is not self-care. Self-care should not cause you any problems. Self-care should not cause you to not meet your rent. Self-care should not cause you to be broke. Self-care should not cause you a headache. Self-care should not cause you irritation or anything like that. Self-care is supposed to just be simple. It's supposed to be simple. It's supposed to be easy. It's supposed to be anything. It's supposed to be anything that you're supposed to do in order to get away, right? Because that's what self-care is, right? Taking care of self so we can kind of reset our mind, so we can kind of take a break, so we can kind of refresh, right? Because if we don't do the self-care, we're going to burn out. But at the same token, we live in a world in which, as of recent, self-care has been king. Self-care has been everywhere. But the thing is, it's like everybody's self-care does not work for everybody, right? Right? My girl's self-care may be getting a facial. She doesn't get facials as far as I know, but my girl's self-care may be getting a facial. That's not my shit. No. Some people like massages and all that stuff. I'm too ticklish for that shit. You're not touching me, I'm going to swing. You might get kicked. I am sorry. It's not happening, right? So the four things that are important when you're creating your self-care regimen, right? The four things. One of the things that's thoroughly important is you have to make sure that the self-care is simple. Can't be difficult. Can't be hard. Can't be something that stresses you out. The self-care has to be simple, right? One simple self-care is just deep breathing. There we go. Right? Just meditating is simple. Right? Taking a walk around the block is simple. Right? Telling yourself some type of positive affirmation is simple. Right? The one thing that your self-care needs to be is simple. The second thing that your self-care needs to be is sustainable. You have to be able to sustain it. Right? My homeboy can't go to the mall all the time and spend some money and he's going to be broke. He can't sustain that form of self-care. He probably would have been able to sustain it if he would have created a budget and followed that budget and give him a monthly budget of turn-up money. Turn-up money. Yeah, this is my turn-up money. This is my turn-up fund, right? If he would have created a turn-up fund, a self-care turn-up fund, like that would have been sustainable once a month. Cool. Create something that's sustainable. Create something that you can do every day, as much as you can, right? Journaling is sustainable, right? Writing something down and and getting those negative thoughts that are on your mind on the paper, so that way it can clear your mind. That's sustainable, right? Third one, make sure your self-care is inexpensive. That shit better not cost a lot. No, because it's going to put you in a hole. When you do some type of self-care and then on the back end, that self-care hurts you. It's not self-care, homie. It's just a temporary relief. And temporary reliefs are not good, right? My homeboy, he spent a bunch of money. Now he ain't got his rent. He wasn't asking me for rent, but I'm just saying, right? It shouldn't cost much. It shouldn't cost a lot, right? The last thing, right? Make sure your self-care is replicable. Make sure you can repeat it as often you can. Make sure you can, right? So the four things: one, make sure your self-care is simple. Make sure your self-care is sustainable. Make sure your self-care is inexpensive, and make sure your self-care is replicable. If it hits all of those four things, you've won, big homie. For real. And every single self-care that I do here on this show, everything that I give y'all, I always try to make sure that it fits all of those, right? Fits all of those. because I don't want to do something that's simple and sustainable, but the shit costs a lot. If it costs a lot, it's not going to be sustainable, right? If it costs a lot, I'm not going to be able to do it consistently, right? I need to make sure I can do it all the time, right? I need to make sure it's quick. So everything that I give you, I try to make sure it is that. Okay? So when you're creating your self-care, when you're creating a self-care regimen, because in all honesty, some of the things that I say on this show, you probably don't mess with. I've said certain things before that just probably, you wouldn't probably really rock with. And that's cool. It's about finding the self-care that works for you, right? So for everyone, when you're creating your self-care regimen, make sure that whatever self-care piece you're putting into your self-care regimen, make sure that it's simple, make sure that it's sustainable, make sure that it's inexpensive, and make sure that it is replicable. All right? Cool. So, for the main topic, right? The main topic, the one thing that we're talking about today. All right. So, the title of this show, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Therapy is a Crutch. Or Therapy is not a Crutch. One of those. But using therapy as a crutch, right? How long should you be in therapy? Are you in therapy too long? Right? Is therapy hurting you? Is therapy any good for you? And when I'm speaking about therapy, I'm speaking about individualized sessions, right? I'm speaking about one-on-one therapy. I'm not speaking about couples therapy, family therapy, any of those other therapy modalities or whatever, right? One-on-one sessions. Sometimes, can therapy be a crutch? Can therapy cause harm? Are you supposed to be in therapy forever? When is it your time to leave therapy? These are the things that I believe we need to speak about today. Only reason why is because I've came across certain individuals. I've had certain patients in the past in which I've had to cut them off because they believe they can use me as a crutch. As their therapist, they believe they can use me as that crutch, right? I'm going to depend on you to get me through my shit. And if Willis as a therapist not there, I'm not going to be able to function right. If that's what therapy is, then therapy is bad. Therapy is not good. Therapy is not sustainable. Therapy is not rewarding. It may be rewarding for the moment, it may be temporary, but we have to get into a place to where therapy is rewarding. We have to get to a place to where therapy is a tool. We have to get to a place to where therapy is effective. And if it becomes a crutch, it is defective. All right. So one of the things that's important when it comes to therapy, first and foremost, understand what you are going to therapy for. Are you going to therapy to fix a problem or to fix a challenge? Do you have issues going on and you need to figure out what you got to do to get through those issues? Or are you going to therapy just to maintain this level of peace that you have in your life? Right? So we'll start on the first part, right? Are you going to therapy to fix a specific problem? If you're going to therapy to fix a specific problem, if I'm going to therapy because I want to not think about suicide anymore, and I get to a place to where I'm not thinking about suicide, you have reached your goal, young man. You do not need to be in therapy anymore. If I'm going to therapy because I'm trying to figure out some tools in which to deal with my trauma, and you found those tools and those tools are helping you every single day, congratulations, young lady. You have reached your goal in therapy. You do not need therapy anymore. Right? And I think we're at a place within society because now therapy is kind of cool to go to. It's still hard for a lot of people, but therapy is cool. Right? And the one thing that's important to understand is like therapy is not permanent. Therapy is not something that you need to rely on. We shouldn't rely on anybody or anything but ourselves. And if we begin to rely on therapy and that therapist to get us through the day, when that therapist is not there anymore, it's going to go south, right? When we're not able to get our daily dose of anything, it's going to go south. But Now, say for example, you've reached that goal of not thinking about suicide. You've reached that goal of finding and developing some tools in order to get through your trauma. That's when you can either stop the therapy or lean into that maintenance phase. Now, that maintenance phase is where you could be at for a while, right? You can be in that maintenance phase because you're just kind of there, just maintaining. You're kind of there, like sharpening the tools that you have, right? What that means is that you don't have to go to sessions once a week. You can go to sessions bi-weekly, once every other week. You can go to sessions twice a month. Well, that is bi-weekly. But you can go to sessions once a month, right? You can go to sessions as little as possible, because the thing is, just like saying, like medications. We get on medications because we want to be able to get us to a place to where we can be able to sustain or get to a balance. We go to therapy so we can be able to get to that balance. And then once we're getting to that balance, let's work at the things we need to work at. And once we found the tools, once I found that screwdriver to this box of problems that I need to lock up, then that's when we begin to wing it off. Because the real test is, am I able to sustain this dope ass life outside of therapy? Am I able to sustain this dope ass life without these medications? Right? So that means that you don't abruptly get off of therapy, or you don't abruptly stop therapy. It's like, no, you wing them off. We're going to shorten the sessions. And these are conversations that the therapist needs to have with you, right? That, okay, I've seen you've reached XYZ goals, so this is what we're going to do. We're going to kind of lower the amount of sessions that you are attending on a month-to-month basis, so that way you can begin to thoroughly utilize these goals within your life, right? And that's what the maintenance phase is. And you can be in the maintenance phase for however long you can. If you're in therapy to just maintain and just to kind of reinforce those things that you're in, then cool, you can be in there as long as you like. But if we're in therapy and we're fixing that same problem over and over and over and over and over, and we're never really getting to that thing, then therapy isn't really working, right? So those are kind of like the two places in which, the two reasons in which why we go to therapy. But therapy can become a crutch for a number of things, right? Some of the times, and this is on part probably on the therapist's behalf, but as a client, I forget that this is actually treatment. I forget that therapy is treatment. I forget that therapy is something therapeutic. I forget that therapy is something that is there to help me out. So what happens is, I go to therapy. Oh, and this is my kick-it day with the therapist. This is my kick-it day with my homegirl, and it's important that we maintain, as therapists, it's important that we maintain that therapeutic boundary, right? It's important that our clients understand that this is a relationship. It's a therapeutic relationship. That's what's most important, right? That the client understands that, and you as a therapist, it's important that we put those boundaries, we set those boundaries, and we enforce those boundaries as needed. Because sometimes, right, let's say, for example, if an individual, a certain person has no friends outside of therapy, if they have no friends outside of therapy, if they have no one they can go to, if they have no one they can trust, what's going to happen is that person is going to begin to lean on you as a therapist that much more, right? And same with you as a client, if that's what you're noticing, that, hey, I don't have anybody outside of here, so I'm looking forward to my sessions because I'm leaning on that person entirely too much. Sometimes you may have to be honest and say, hey, maybe I need to back off, or maybe I need to find these friends outside of here so I don't have to rely on you that much, right? And that's what's important. We don't want to rely on someone that much. Another thing is we forget and we don't understand that there's a fine line between therapy supplying the tool and therapy being the tool, right? There's a fine line between therapy supplying the tool and therapy being the tool, right? Therapy is supposed to supply the tools that you need. Therapy is supposed to supply you with the coping skills, with the grounding techniques, the mindfulness techniques, with the goal setting things. Therapy is supposed to supply you with all of those things that you need. But if therapy becomes a tool, if I go to therapy just for this one little thing, right? If therapy is the tool, then what's going to happen is we're going to rely on that therapy. And we don't want to rely on that therapy because if we don't go to one session, our whole life is fucked. Remember, Therapy is about supplying the tool, right? And then once me as a therapist gives you the tool, it's on you to be able to use those tools outside of therapy, right? Therapy shouldn't be, you shouldn't go into therapy thinking I'm going to be in this forever. No, let me get what I need out of therapy. Use those things outside of therapy and go handle my business. If I need to come back for maintenance, if I need to come back to reinforce or to sharpen those tools that I have because I've kind of slipped up or because I've lost the way a little bit, okay, cool, come back for that. But there's a fine line between therapy being the tool and using therapy as the tool. We don't want to be dependent on it. We don't want to be dependent on anything. We don't want to use therapy or that therapist as we don't want to be codependent on that thing. We don't. The second things become bad. Right? So, when it comes to that, and when we're in that position in which we're relying on this, and when we understand and when we've realized that therapy is now a crutch, there are certain things you can do, a few things you can do. Understand you as a client, you as a patient, understand what your role is. And it's important to maintain that balance, right? Understand what your role is. And your role as a client is to be the client. That means you have to stay within certain boundaries. That means I can't come here wearing XYZ. That means I can't flirt with the therapist. That means I have to stay between those therapeutic lines. But that also goes on the therapist in making sure that you set those boundaries and then you enforce those boundaries and you make sure those boundaries are maintained throughout the journey of your therapeutic journey, I guess, right? It's a two-way street, right? It takes two in order for this therapy to not become a crutch, right? Understand what's my role in the situation just so I can maintain the balance, right? Another thing that you can do, right, is create new goals, right? Say, for example, your goal is to not think of suicide, or your goal is to not not self-harm. Say if that's your goal, and your goal is to not self-harm for 2 months. 2 months have passed and you have not self-harmed. You have not cut yourself. Bam. You have accomplished your goal. Now let's create another goal in order to make sure that that one goal does not just die out. Because what happened is we could accomplish a goal and then we think I'm all good. It's like, no. It's like the person who is practicing sobriety. They think, oh, because I've been sober for 3 months, I'm straight. I can be around alcohol. And then the second they're around alcohol is the second they relapse. It's like, no. You have to continue pushing the envelope. It's important. And my man, a lot of times I always have to go back to David Goggins, but my man David Goggins said this. It's important that we don't create false finish lines. It's important that we don't create false finish lines, because if I create this false finish line of I'm not going to cut myself for 2 months and then I reach that finish line, I'm done. I don't have to work on it anymore, because that's what the finish line is, right? We reach the finish line at the race is over. These are not finish lines. These are checkpoints. My checkpoint is 2 months, I've reached that. My checkpoint is 3 months, I've reached that. My checkpoint is a year, I've reached that. Because a lot of things in life, it's a lot of things that we go through when it comes to mental health, it's a lifelong journey. Sobriety is a lifelong thing. Dealing with your depression may be a lifelong thing. Dealing with your anxiety, your schizophrenia, and all of these disorders that you may have going on in your life may be a lifelong thing. The trauma that may be there may be a lifelong thing. But it's important you reach those checkpoints, not the finish line. Because you'll get to that finish line and we'll forget all of the work that was done in order to get through it. We'll forget all of the work that was done in order to get through it, right? It's important that we get to the checkpoint and look at it as such. Don't create false finish lines, because that's not going to do nothing but hold you back, right? Another thing is that we have to play with the frequency of the sessions, right? Same with like medications, right? When we're trying to wean certain people off, when we're trying to titrate, that's the right word. When we're trying to titrate people off certain medications, We're going to titrate you down the amount of sessions, the frequency in which you're coming to sessions. Instead of you coming, some people go twice a week. Instead of you going twice a week, go once a week. Some people go, you're going to go once a week. And then after you go once a week, you're going to go bi-weekly, twice a month. Then after that, you're going to go monthly. See how you're doing, right? If you go every other week, if you go bi-weekly and you notice things are becoming a little hard, okay, maybe we need to increase the sessions. Maybe you need to go every week. And if you're every week, cool, and everything is right, go back to bi-weekly. And if you're at bi-weekly and everything is good, okay, cool, go back to monthly, right? Keep it where it's at, right? Play with it a little bit, right? Because the thing about therapy that's most important is that we don't want to get used to it. We want therapy to continue to be refilling, continue to be refreshing, continue to be something that energizes us, right? But at the same token, therapy is hard. Therapy is going to make you cry. Therapy is going to put pain in your system. Therapy is going to open these wounds because that's what therapy is meant for. In order for me as a therapist to help you get through things, I'm going to have to open up a wound a little bit just so you can see that this wound is an important wound. And once that wound is open, it's time for me to pull you out so you can watch that wound heal without you being a part of it, right? That's what therapy is, okay? So it's important that we understand at what point therapy is becoming a crutch and when it is becoming a crutch, time to back off. When we come to a place to where we're relying on the therapy too much, time to back off. When we see that therapy is becoming a party and it's all this and you're not really doing anything, it's time to back off, right? Because therapy is thoroughly important. Therapy is always going to be there. But just like anything in life, anything good for too long can become something bad, right? Don't rely on something and do what you have to do so that way it can always be good. It's all about that balance, right? So going forth into that question, that one question that I never really come up with, but or the one question I never come up with before the show, but I come up with during the show when it comes to therapy. Not even when it comes to therapy, when it comes to just people in life, right? Ask yourself, who within your life or what in your life are you using as a crutch right now? Who within your life or what within your life are you using as a crutch? Sometimes we use people as a crutch. Sometimes I use my bed as a crutch. Sometimes I use Instagram as a crutch. Sometimes I use whatever as a crutch. What are you using as a crutch? And what I mean by crutch is, what are you using as an escape to get away from whatever issues you need to get away from? Because we could use therapy, even though therapy is meant to assist us with certain things, we can use therapy as a way to escape the things that we're running away from. But when me as a client is using therapy as a crutch, I am trying to run away from my lack of confidence of being out here on my own, right? When I'm using, I don't know, this certain person as a crutch, I'm codependent, and I depend upon this person too much. I'm using that person as something to cause me to get away from life and things like that, right? Sometimes I use my busy schedule as a crutch to avoid certain things in life. That's just to be completely honest. It's easier for me to be like, oh, I can't do that because I gotta go to work. That is the easiest excuse for me, because people know I'm be mad busy. I can't do that right now. I gotta be at work. I gotta be at work tomorrow. I'm busy. I'm at work. And I was like, that's a crutch that people understand. That people are going to be like, okay. Well, that's the excuse that people are going to be like, okay, cool. I'll use that as a crutch. What are you using as a crutch? And who are you using as a crutch? All right. So as always, to all those individuals who are listening and tuning in, good looking, big homie. Good looking. As always, please, thoroughly understand. Ain't no wealth without your mental health. So please stay blessed and take care of yourself. Be great, y'all. Peace.